Ever get that feeling like, what? This whole consciousness thing, what's really going on in our brains?
Yeah, it's a pretty big mystery, right?
Total mystery. Well, today's deep dive, get ready to go down the rabbit hole. We're talking about a theory that says the answer might be hiding in another dimension.
You're not kidding? Buckle up, folks. We're diving headfirst into theoretical physics and trying not to get lost in the weeds.
And to guide us through those weeds, we've got a pretty amazing expert lined up for you.
Well, thank you. Always happy to geek out about this stuff.
So let's introduce this mind-bending idea and the physicist behind it. Michael Pravica, professor at UNLV, but also, get this, a Harvard PhD.
Yeah, this guy's no slouch. Seriously brilliant.
And he's making some serious waves by saying, hold on, what if consciousness isn't just our brains, firing off neurons? What if it's actually coming from somewhere else completely?
And not just some other part of the brain. We're talking about another dimension. Like a dimension we can't see or touch or anything, but it might be out there pulling the strings.
See, this is what I love. I mean, one minute you're thinking about like what to make for dinner, and the next minute you're contemplating the existence of other dimensions.
It's a trip, for sure.
But let's take it back a notch. How does a physicist even get on this track? Like, how do you go from studying physics to, hey, maybe our consciousness is from another dimension?
So Pravica, he's not just making this up out of thin air, right?
Yeah.
This theory is coming from some seriously complex physics. We're talking string theory.
Okay, hit me with the string theory explanation.
All right, so picture this. Everything in the universe, even us right now, is made up of these teeny tiny vibrating strings. I mean, way smaller than atoms.
Okay, I'm picturing it barely. Keep going.
So these strings, they vibrate in different ways, creating different particles and forces. And here's the kicker. To make this whole string theory thing work, physicists realized you need more than just the regular 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. You need extra dimensions, all curled up and hidden.
Whoa, okay. So there are potentially all these extra dimensions hanging out, but they're hidden from us. And Pravica thinks our consciousness is linked up to them somehow.
That's the gist, yeah. Imagine we're all flatlanders living in a 2D world, clueless about a whole other dimension right next to us.
Okay, I kind of get that.
So Pravica's saying maybe our brains are picking up on signals, information, whatever, from these hidden dimensions, and that's what we experience as consciousness, like a radio tuned into a frequency we didn't even know existed.
So our brains are like cosmic radios. That's a lot to process. Okay, so if our brains are these cosmic radios, what's that even look like in real life? I mean, how are we interacting with these hidden dimensions?
Well, think about it this way. Ever have those moments where an idea just pops into your head? Like completely out of nowhere?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Or those crazy, vivid dreams that feel so real? Pravica suggests those could be moments when our consciousness is kind of dipping a toe into these extra dimensions.
Like we're getting a little signal boost from another dimension.
Exactly. Picking up information or having experiences that wouldn't normally be accessible to us in our usual 4 dimensions.
Okay, so that super organized spice rack idea I had the other day, that was another dimension helping a sister out.
Hey, who am I to judge how the universe works its magic? But, jokes aside, Pravica believes those moments of heightened consciousness, whether it's deep thought, meditation, even those aha moments of creativity, those might be glimpses into these hidden dimensions.
So basically, our most profound thoughts are possibly interdimensional. Wild.
You got it.
But, okay, before we go full-blown sci-fi on this, gotta ask, and I know our listeners are thinking the same thing, not everyone's buying into this theory, right?
You're right, of course. It's definitely a controversial idea. So scientists think Pravica's, well, reaching a bit too far.
Reaching how so?
They argue that he's basically using these extra dimensions to explain what we don't already understand about the brain and consciousness, right? It's a tempting trap to fall into.
Like saying, oh, we don't know how consciousness works, so it must be those extra dimensions.
Exactly. And the problem with that is, it's kind of a conversation stopper. It's like explaining a magic trick by saying, a wizard did it.
Right. It doesn't really get you any closer to understanding how the trick actually works.
Exactly. And scientifically speaking, how do you even begin to test a theory like that?
Right. Like, do we have a dimension detector lying around somewhere?
If only. Even with all our fancy technology, think Large Hadron Collider smashing atoms together, we still haven't actually observed these extra dimensions directly. It's like they exist on a level we can't even perceive with our current instruments.
So is Pravica's theory basically just a fun thought experiment then? Or is there a chance, even a tiny one, that he could be onto something?
Well, here's the thing about science. It's all about asking those big, uncomfortable questions, even the ones that seem impossible to answer right now. Pravica's theory might be pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible, but that's how we get those breakthroughs. Think about it. A few hundred years ago, the idea of Earth being round sounded pretty crazy to some folks.
Okay, I see your point. So even if we can't build a portal to another dimension in the lab tomorrow, this theory is making us think about consciousness in a new way. Which actually reminds me of something else Pravica said that really got me thinking. He asked, like, why bother even studying consciousness if there isn't something more out there to discover? Like, what's the point if it's all just neurons firing?
Ah, yes. That's a really profound question, isn't it? And it speaks to that innate human drive to understand, to explore. Yeah. It's like he's suggesting that maybe, just maybe, the very act of seeking answers means there are answers out there to be found.
It's kind of a hopeful thought when you think about it. Like, the universe wants us to keep searching. I mean, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right?
It's true. It's like that saying, the universe is not only stranger than we imagine, it's stranger than we can imagine.
Oh, okay, that's a little creepy, but I get it. So for everyone listening out there who might be feeling a little mind blown right now, let's try to bring this back down to earth for a minute.
Back to reality.
Right. What are some key takeaways from this deep dive into Pravica's theory and, like, the whole idea of consciousness coming from another dimension?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway, even if you're not totally sold on the extra-dimensional aspect, is that consciousness is still this huge, unexplored territory.
Right, like we're still in the dark ages when it comes to understanding it.
Basically. Pravica's theory just highlights how much we don't know about our own minds, which is kind of a humbling thought, but also pretty exciting.
Totally agree. It's like we're carrying around this crazy mystery inside our own heads. And hey, while Pravica's theory is super interesting, we also have to remember good old-fashioned science. Gotta have that evidence.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can't just jump to conclusions without some solid proof. It's like Sherlock Holmes said, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. And we're not at the truth stage yet with consciousness. But Pravica is getting us to question those assumptions, right? To consider new possibilities.
And that's what's so cool about all this. It's a reminder that we're living in a universe that's full of wonders we can't even begin to fathom.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a thought, and this one really blows my mind. If consciousness does come from other dimensions, like Pravica suggests, could there be other beings out there? Like other intelligences existing in those realms that we can't even perceive?
Now you're getting into some really interesting territory. It's a pretty wild thought, right? I mean, what if those dimensions are teeming with life and we're just completely oblivious? Right. It's both amazing and a little bit terrifying. And on that note, we're going to have to leave it there for today. But tell me, if you had the chance to peek into those hidden dimensions, would why you do it? Let us know what you think. Head over to our website, find us on social media. Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, keep those minds open and keep exploring the mysteries of the universe.